Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming and being here for Lesson 6 in our series on marriage oneness. We've spoken about several different aspects of oneness, and the aspect that we're going to be talking about tonight is that of family and friends. So when we come together and in our marriage, well, there's a whole lot of people that we've been involved with, and a lot of times people come together in a marriage, and that family and friends things is two total separate things. There's not even very much crossover. So you got these totally separate groups, and they, can have an effect on the marriage. Can be positive, can be negative, but you got to think through those things and ask the Lord's help in this area because relationships around a marriage are really vitally important. They truly are. And there's cautions there about who you allow to influence you. And there's proactiveness in getting around some people that you believe will help your marriage. That you look at them and you see positive things happening in their marriage, and you want to be connected to that. You want to get close to that so that it kind of rubs off. It's not just as simple as rubbing up against one another, but the example that's set and having that influence in your life definitely can be a powerful thing. So those people around you can make a great contribution and be a blessing to your marriage. Proverbs chapter 17 and verse 17 says this: "A friend loveth at all times, and a brother is born for adversity." A friend loveth at all times, and a brother is born for adversity. So people who are really your friends, they're going to stick with you. Even when things are hard, even when things are difficult, they're not going to be the friend that just wants to sit around the table and play cards and laugh, but then when you're going through something difficult, they kind of avoid you. That's not a real friend. A real friend sticks with you even in the tough times. A brother is born for adversity. So they can be that great blessing, but they can also be a hindrance. And so that's what we've got to be careful about. I don't know how many of you have ever watched Everybody Loves Raymond, but that's probably the most extreme example of family interference in a marriage. I mean, it is absolutely unbelievable. And but at the same time, there are maybe not that extreme, but there are situations where certain family members can really interfere in a marriage. Even friends can come in and interfere in a marriage. And so you have to be very, very careful about it. The Bible says this in Matthew chapter 19. "And he answered and said unto them, Have you not read that which made them in the beginning, made them male and female, and said, For this cause shall a man leave father and mother, and shall cleave to his wife, and they twain shall be one flesh. Wherefore they are no more twain or two, but they're one flesh. What therefore God has joined together, let no man put asunder." So this is Jesus teaching on marriage, and he reaches back into the Old Testament and brings forth that teaching from the Old Testament and talks about the importance of oneness and protecting that and having it in your marriage. So the key, talking about family and friends, the key is how do we handle these relationships? Now that we've come together, how do we handle all these satellite relationships that exist around us? Remember this: you only have one soulmate. If your objective is in your marriage for your spouse to be your soulmate, and that should be our objective, then you just have one of those. And so this is a very vital relationship to protect. Other relationships must be approached with wisdom. And here's a key word for you: boundaries. Other relationships around you must be approached with wisdom and appropriate boundaries. So let's take our Bibles and turn to Genesis chapter 2. I want to remind you of this verse. This is the verse that Jesus was quoting from that we mentioned in Matthew chapter 19, but here in Genesis chapter 2, in verse 24, this is the very moment that marriage was instituted. And this is what God said about it. Therefore shall a man leave his father and mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh. Now those are pretty simple instructions for these two people that have just come together, right? There's pretty simple instructions. And isn't it funny that they didn't have a father and mother from the standpoint that you and I do? And so he was actually giving an instruction for them that would apply to generations to come. But in their case, they weren't leaving father and mother. It was just Adam and Eve, And, Eve, I guess, could have said, I knew you loved the lion more than you loved me. But, other than that, there was no other humans around to have kind of these issues that we're talking about here. But we need to talk about the in-laws, because this verse says, leave father and mother and cleave to your spouse. So you leave that and you cling to this new relationship with your spouse. Now, leaving does not mean have nothing to do with, absolutely ignore, in no way, shape, or form. Should your parents or your in-laws be involved in this? That's not what we're getting at here. But they were before a powerful influence in my life. But I've got to be careful now, because it's not just me now, it's us. And I got to make sure that the us can have that oneness that we're looking for. And these other relationships can strain that or even bring destruction to it. So the importance of leaving and cleaving is something that we've really got to realize and make sure that we adhere to. So what about when the in-laws won't mind their own business? What about that? What about when we have that situation where they won't mind their own business? Here's the thing you got to do. You have got to agree as a couple as to what the boundaries are. Okay, now listen. There are some people that the relationship with the in-laws is awful. I mean, it's poison. It's just a really bad situation. Could be for several different reasons. It could be that they're not very godly people. Could be some past hurt that's never been taken care of or corrected. Could be that, Mama didn't like him from the beginning, and then you went ahead and married him anyway, And so all these things that potentially, could be in the mix. But we've got to decide where those boundaries are, and we've got to decide that as a couple. So as a couple, what are we expecting out of these other relationships? Because some of them could be poison, like the ones I just talked about, but some of them can be very helpful. You as a couple, you may agree, are you kidding me? Man, your parents are great. I'm so glad they're a part of our life. They're so helpful. And you may have that in your marriage, and that's wonderful. If you're able to have that blessing, that is a wonderful thing for you to have in your life. But you've got to create the expectations. You cannot let them create the expectations for you. You have to create the expectations. Me and my spouse, we've talked through this. And this is how we expect these relationships to go. This is how we expect these things to influence our marriage. And we're going to be proactive and make some decisions here rather than just kind of sitting back and see what happens. And maybe what happens is good, but maybe what happens is not a good thing. So we're going to kind of think through what we want those expectations to be. And let me tell you something. A lot of times somebody's going to be unhappy, so it don't have to be you, right? Let it be somebody else. If you have one of these situations where there is some tension there, it's not, all roses. If there's some difficulty involved, somebody's going to be unhappy. Well, I'd a lot rather it be my in-laws be unhappy than it be me be unhappy. I'd a lot rather it be, wouldn't you? I'd a lot rather it be my own parents be unhappy than me be unhappy, because they're reaching in and causing a strain between me and my spouse. And so if the perfect world is nobody's got to be unhappy. We all just have a great thing going here. But if somebody's got to be unhappy, I would say don't let it be you or your spouse. Let it be those other people. Let them be the ones whose expectations are not being met. You make sure your expectations are being met. And don't continue to seek approval from them, because that will potentially cause a problem between you and your spouse. You're more concerned about, what does mama really think? Well, what would daddy say? Okay. Now, again, maybe they're godly people and maybe there's some good influences there. But at the end of the day, it's you two together. You got to figure this thing out. It's not, what do all these other people expect, and I'm trying to impress them. I'm trying to get their approval instead of being concerned about me and my spouse having oneness. Or even continuing to compete with a sibling, Well, I tell you, we've always competed, and that she always thinks she's better than me, and so I got to do this, and I got to do that. No, you got to talk to your spouse and agree together what kind of life you want to have, and who cares what sis does. I want to have a happy life with my spouse. I don't care, what is going on there. I'm not going to continue to compete like we did when we were young. And so let me give you a few areas in which boundaries are needed. First of all, we need boundaries in time. Okay? So we've got to decide together how much time is appropriate with the in-laws, with extended family, with our friends. We've got to decide together how important that is and what the time boundaries should be. Like again, and everybody loves Raymond, it seems like that there's not enough time boundaries there. Mama just busts in the door anytime she wants to, and that's not a healthy scene going on there. So we've got to decide what these appropriate boundaries are together, and typically you probably won't have a lot of trouble with that. But it could be like, man, if it feels like, man, every time we get ready to have a little bit of time together, here comes so-and-so. Okay, then don't be afraid to say to so-and-so, hey, listen, we'd like a little time, together. We love you and we appreciate that you come over to see us and everything, but, Pastor Scott, you're going to have to leave us alone for a little while. I mean, we like to have a little time to ourselves. And so don't let someone pester you to the point that you're losing that time together, because for most of us, time is a precious commodity. There's not a whole lot of it. If we're working and we've got family to take care of and other responsibilities, time's short. And so we want to make sure that we have that time with each other that we need. Money is another boundary. Family can be helpful when you get in a pinch, when you get in a bind. I remember me and Missy, we went to seminary. I tell you what, man, my dad taught me how to work, and he taught me how to take care of myself. And me and Dad, we worked together. When I was a kid, we worked together all the time. And I never would even ask Dad for a Coke, ever. Now, if Dad said, would you like to have a Coke? Sure, yeah. I'm not saying that he was mean and I never got to have any Cokes, but I'm just saying, from what he taught me, I didn't say, Dad, can I have this or can I have that? And in fact, I had some of my own money, and I, could do it, from the money that I had earned, from things. And so he taught me to be responsible for myself. And Missy and I, we went to seminary, and I had a Mazda pickup truck with a camper shell on it. And when we left, we crammed our mattress in the back of that pickup truck and a bunch of boxes where the church had given us a pounding. You know what a pounding is? That's an old word. It means that they gave us a bunch of food. They gave us a bunch of, a pound of this and a pound of that. That's why it's called a pounding. And so they gave us a bunch of dry goods and non-perishable items and stuff. So we go to the seminary, and, it took me a little while to find a job. It took probably about 3 or 4 weeks to find a job. Well, then by the time you get paid, you're 5 or 6 weeks into it, And we had eaten up all of our pounding. I mean, there just wasn't much left. In fact, we were down to pork and beans, which I don't care if I ever eat another one of them my whole life, and macaroni and cheese. We had a lot of pork and beans, and macaroni noodles. Yeah, not cheese, the macaroni noodles. So we had pork and beans with macaroni noodles in them. What a delight that is. Yeah, if you've never tried it, I hope you get a chance to try that. And then one night it dawned on us that we had change in our ashtray. And we went out to the car and we dug out all of our change and we dug out enough money to go buy a pound of hamburger. And we had hamburger in our pork and beans. Man, it was amazing. But we were running out and we still had not asked anybody for help. We hadn't asked anybody for help. You know, we were asking him for help, but we hadn't reached out to family or anybody else. And really weren't planning on doing that. But Missy's mom called and just said, "How are you doing?" And Missy lost it.
That's not true.
I think it is true.
I was pregnant, and I said, "Can I please call my mommy?"
Oh, okay. All right. Gotcha. My point is this. Family did help us a little bit at that point. Now, a few days later, when one of our fellow seminary students said, "Well, haven't you been down to the pantry?" Nobody had told us there was. I'm like those people in the book of Acts. They didn't know if there was any such thing as the Holy Spirit. I didn't know there was any such thing as a pantry. But evidently, there was this place full of food that seminary students could just go get it. And we didn't even realize it. But, you know, you may have some scrapes where family can come in and help, and it's a blessing. It's a wonderful thing. But you have to be wise about it, because some family members, it's nothing more than leverage. Sure, they got the money. And sure, you know, "Oh, well, let us give you this or give you that." But it comes with a price tag on the end of it. It comes with an expectation, you know. And so be careful about that, because you don't want those kind of things looming over your relationship. And by the way, even being on the side of being the one that's helping, you need to be careful as well, because I know some really, I could tell you right now in my mind 2 or 3 situations where that relationship is so unhealthy, and it's a constant, we need this, you know, and making the other person feel, if you really loved us, you'd do it. And then so they help, but then they kind of feel like from their end, well, hey, you know, we helped you, so why aren't you doing this or doing that? And so it can become a really difficult thing. So be very cautious about that and know where the boundaries are when it comes to those sort of things. Words is another boundary. You got time, you got money. Words is another boundary. I've seen some situations where family members thought they had the right to say some things that they had no right to say. And you two, as a married couple, you need to defend one another. You need to protect one another. And I tell you, men, especially a lot of times, especially if your wife feels attacked and you don't defend her, that is a hard thing for her to deal with. A hard thing to deal with. You might say, "Well, Brother Scott, what the person said, I kind of see what they're saying. I kind of see the truth in it." Yeah, that might be true, and it might be something you need to talk about later. But you can still say, "Hey, wait a minute. You're not going to talk about my wife that way. Let's back up the truck here. That's not your business. You stay out of this." And so I'm just saying that if you're not careful, there'll be some family and friends that think they have the right to say some things that it's going too far. And you don't need those kind of negative influences in your life. And then you also have to be careful, because if you're not careful, you'll have a family member or a friend that you bend their ear when things aren't going real well. You know, this happened and this happened. You kind of cry on their shoulder, and you may feel like, well, that really helps me, you know, to have someone, an outlet like that. But then the problem a lot of times is we cry on their shoulder, but then we don't come back to them and say, "Oh, you know, they came to me and said they were sorry, and it all worked out, you know, and kissy, and it was all wonderful, you know." So the only thing this family member or friend ever hears is the negative, and they get a very ugly picture of the person that you're married to, because all they're ever hearing is the negative. And so we've got to be very, very careful and set some boundaries on those words, the ones that we'll receive and the ones that we give out. I would also say this about words. Be so super careful about what you say in front of the kids. So super careful about that. They don't need all those extra details. I know people that talk in front of their kids just like it was a room full of adults. Details they don't need. Tensions that they don't need to have anxiety over. And they could be protected by simply not saying those things in front of them. Let's go somewhere else and talk. It's just that simple, but too lazy to get up off the couch, and so rather than going in the bedroom so we can talk about this, we just do it right here in front of the kids. Not a good thing. When you do have disagreements, I know none of you probably have those, but when you do have disagreements, be careful about in front of the kids. Even when they're little, be careful. Because they hear and know a whole lot more than we give them credit for. And why put those pressures in their life? Why make them feel those strains? All it takes is a little bit of discipline to say, hey, let's talk about this after the kids go to bed. It's all just a little bit of discipline, and you will save them a lot of heartache and a lot of problems. And I know that Missy and I weren't perfect in that area, but we certainly did try our very best that when we disagreed about something, hey, let's go for a walk, let's go for a drive, or if the kids were too little, let's wait until we get them down this evening and then we can discuss this. Just realizing that our disagreement, probably we were going to work it out, but the kids didn't need to see that, and all they needed to see was everything seems fine with mom and dad. And that's the way that we tried to keep it. Not a false front, but just to protect them from those moments that they really didn't need to have to be involved in and have those challenges. Your home is another area to set boundaries. I mean, how much are these people welcome to come over? Do they just have free reign? They can come over anytime they want and there's no limitation? Or is there, kind of some boundaries, on that? You've got to think through that and make sure that you don't feel like you have no privacy. You don't feel like you can never get anything done because, and this could be, we talk about family, but this could be a friend that would do this, and you've got to be really, really careful about those kind of things. Holidays. That's another place to set boundaries, is holidays. What am I talking about? Christmas. Thanksgiving. Who do we spend those holidays with? When do we go where? Who gets to see the kids on Christmas Day? And who, okay. Now listen. You make sure that when the holiday's over, that you're happy. Not that everybody else is happy, because you came and saw them when they wanted you to come and see them, but you make sure that you're happy. Hey, we're going to have, our family's going to have Christmas on Christmas morning. That's when we're going to do it. And we're not going to be showing up somewhere else on Christmas morning, because we're going to have our family thing together on Christmas morning. If you'd like us to come the night before, we would be available on Christmas Eve. Or if you'd like us to come Christmas night, we might be available, or sometime during the week. And then you compound it, because a lot of families, it's not just mom and dad on this side, but then there's the step parents, and there's the, so you end up with not just two places to try to figure it out and then also have time for yourself, but maybe 3 or 4 places to try to figure out and also have time for yourself. So I'm just saying, you decide what you want for your family, and don't let everybody else infringe on that. Everybody else has got to work around that, all right? And Missy and I, we just decided a long time ago that if they'd show up, that's all we cared about. We didn't care about, it has to be Christmas Day. We didn't care about that. So we tell our kids, make all your other plans, And once you've got figured out the different places you got to be, we'll figure out where the hole is, and that's when we'll have ours. Because, it doesn't have to be, we haven't had Thanksgiving on Thanksgiving Day for, I don't know how long, 10 or 12 years we haven't had it on Thanksgiving Day, because we just, if that is a big deal to somebody else's mom, then go over there on Thanksgiving Day. We won't, turkey's good any day of the week, so we're not too worried about that. But you, as your own family unit, you got to figure out what's important to you, and don't let everybody else set those expectations. You set those expectations when it comes to those kind of things. So boundaries have to be specific. They have to be communicated between you and your spouse. And boundaries also have to have a clear consequence. I mean, what if you tell someone this is the boundary, and they say, no, too bad. What I want's more important than what you want. What I want's more important than what your spouse wants. What I want's more important than what you guys say that you agreed to. And I'm going to apply pressure, and I'm going to apply guilt and try to get what I want. Now, what are you going to do when a person does that? Now, hopefully you won't face that at all. I mean, we're actually talking about kind of worst case scenario here, so hopefully you won't face that at all. But if you do face that, it would be good for you two to decide what's going to happen in that situation. Not have to, suddenly deal with it, at the pressure point and maybe make a decision that would be difficult for the both of you. So don't be afraid to make a decision in advance where that's going to be. Would you be shocked if I told you that me and Missy had a point in time in our marriage that I told my mother that she was not welcome to see our kids? Now, I was a Christian. I was a pastor. I was everything I am right now. And I won't tell you all the details, but there was very real reasons where that just could not happen. It could not happen. I'm not saying that was easy. I'm not saying that was just a flippant, kind of decision. But when boundaries were set and they were never respected, then at some point, a decision had to be made. Now, thankfully, that wasn't a long-term thing. Thankfully, it worked out. But I'm just saying that sometimes it can be a really difficult situation, a really hard situation, and you guys got to decide what's going to help us keep our oneness, not what's going to make all these other people happy. And so that's where we've got to really stick with it on those kind of things. Now let's move on to the kids. Turn to Psalm 127. Psalm 127, verse 3. The 127th Psalm, verse 3 says this: Lo, children are an heritage of the Lord, and the fruit of the womb is His reward. Children are a heritage from the Lord, and the fruit of the womb is His reward. We're talking about marital oneness. Children are an expression of oneness in marriage. They're a very real, tangible expression of marital oneness. And so they are a blessing from the Lord. Absolutely. And I know sometimes they might not seem like a blessing, but they really are a blessing from the Lord. And we have to see that, and we have to understand that and desire to live within that. But they can cause stress. There's no doubt about it. No, let me say that differently. They are going to cause stress. There's no doubt about it. And they'll cause strain in your marriage. Children will. And I'm not talking about, it doesn't matter what age. There's going to be challenges that come along with the kids. And so we've got to realize that and understand that. But hey, with the Lord's help, we can get through all those stages. We start out and we've got maybe our life before kids, and then we've got infants, and then we've got toddlers, and now we've got preschoolers, and now we've got elementary school, and now we've got, on and on and on it goes. So at the early age, they're predominantly physically exhausting. Just a lot of physical activity and taking care of those kids. And then as they get a little bit older, grade school into teen years, they become emotionally exhausting. And then, and this is really important, at some stage, you end up with the empty nest. And it's a good thing to ask yourself right now, how am I getting ready for that? Because one of these days, these kids are going to be gone. Now hopefully you still have a good relationship with them, you still see them, and all that kind of stuff. But I'm saying right now, it's just so caught up in, the kids, and we got to do this, and we got to do this, and it's just life, it's all consuming. But one of these days, they're going to leave the nest. They're going to all be out on their own, and it's just going to be you two. It's just going to be you two. And when it's you two, what are you going to do in that situation? Will you have preserved your oneness to the point that even with all the kids gone, we're good? See, because here's what happens a lot of times. People marry, they have children, and for so many years it's about the kids. We're working together and we're providing for the kids, and we're all the things we're trying to do for the kids, and it's the kids, the kids, the kids, the kids, and then all of a sudden the kids are gone, and we got nothing to keep us together, because that's what kept us together all this time. It's shocking to me, people late in life getting these divorces that seem like they were good. Somebody you go to church with, it's somebody that you've known for a while, and you think, man, I would have thought they were in good shape. But a lot of times it's because so much energy was poured into raising those kids, and they never poured into each other, and then when that part's over, they've just got nothing. It's two strangers living in the same house. And what they had in common is now gone. And so you guys have to be proactive to keep that from happening along the way. You've got to have date night. You've got to have time to be alone with each other. You've got to pour into each other and make sure that once all the kids are gone, hey, we've had this great relationship. We've raised kids and we love them and we're so thankful for them. But we also worked on one another all these years. And we kept things in a good place with each other. And that is so very important for you to do. Kids think, well, I don't know, Brother Scott, we need to do all this stuff to concentrate on the kids. But kids who grow up in a home where they see mom and dad in a healthy relationship, it's a powerful impact in their life for them to see that. It really is a powerful impact in their life. And so don't make that mistake of thinking, oh, we'll concentrate on the kids all these years, and then once they're gone, then we'll concentrate on us. No, that's a mistake. Concentrate on each other right now while you're raising the kids, so that when we got empty nest, we were like, woo-hoo, man, we got all kinds of time, and some money too, what in the world, we got some money, and we miss them a lot. But then grandkids come along, and that's another awesome stage of life to be in, is having the grandkids and being able to raise them. So then let's talk about friends as the last thing. Proverbs 27, verse 17. Proverbs 27, verse 17 says this: Iron sharpens iron, so a man sharpeneth the countenance of his friend. As iron sharpens iron, so a man sharpeneth the countenance of his friend. So friends can be very valuable, very, very helpful in our life, to sharpen us, to strengthen us. And so it's not that we're saying don't have any friends. That's not what we're saying. But what you've got to be careful about is that those friendships are not more important than your relationship. Your relationship is number one. Nothing is more important than that. And you've got to keep it in that vein and make sure that that's what happens. So really what should happen is a friend should help you improve in various areas of your life, including your marriage. That's what a friend would do. A friend would never say, well, I'll tell you what, if she did that to me, I'd just tell her this, that, and the other. Just tell him, well, come on, let's go. I'll let you tell her. See what happens then. Yeah. Well, if he did that to me, I would just do this, that, and the other. You know, it's awfully easy to talk when you're not in the situation. And so just be careful. You know, probably most friends mean well, and they're just trying to support you. You know, I got your back kind of thing. But those kind of advices are not what you need. You know, you need someone that's going to help you do right and someone that's going to help you build strength within your marriage. So we do need friends, but what kind of friends do we need? In Proverbs 13, verse 20, it says this, he that walketh with wise men shall be wise, but a companion of fools shall be destroyed. So, you know, those buddies that you hang out with in high school and in college, you know, they might be fun guys, but do they have any wisdom? At the end of the day, you know, sure, to go bowling with them, great, you know, but let them speak into my life about my marriage. You know, you better make sure, you know, you need some wise people. You don't need fools as your companions. You need some wise people. And that's why I say, get around other people that you see a solid marriage and let them speak into your life. They should provide encouragement. It says in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, wherefore comfort yourselves together and edify one another, even also as you do. We need people to edify or encourage us. That's what friends should do, not drag us down. They should motivate us to good works. Hebrews 10:24 says, let us consider one another to provoke unto love and good works. So choose your friends wisely. 1 Corinthians 15:33 says, be not deceived, evil communication corrupts good manners. And so you get around the wrong people, and before you know it, you're going in a bad direction. So when it comes to friends and various relationships, usually there's no neutral ground. Usually people are either lifting us up or they're pulling us down. That's usually the way relationships go. They're either lifting us up or they're pulling us down. And you need to be around some people that will lift you up. And that's why I would say to anyone to be sure that you're involved in a good church. Because that's really one of the premier places that you can find those kind of relationships, those kind of friends that are really going to be there and are going to help you and encourage you and strengthen you and try to get you to go the right direction, you know, that are going to talk you off the ledge, you know, when you're kind of getting out there. Those are the kind of friends that we need in our life. And so a lot of the things that used to be before we got married, those kind of things just kind of have to fade away because it was fun for that time. But now I'm leaving that and I'm cleaving to my spouse. This is the most important thing. And I've got to protect our oneness. And so if anybody, family member, friend, even our own children, if anybody's trying to sabotage that, I've got to put up a defense there. I cannot let that take place. Father, I come before you and thank you so much for everything that you show us from your word. I pray, Lord, that what we've discussed tonight is helpful, and Lord, that we'll think through the importance of what is the place of our families in our marriage, what is the place of our friends, our children within all this structure, Lord. How do we protect our oneness and make sure that we keep that as a high priority and that everybody around us knows that that is a high priority in our life. Lord, we ask you to make our marriages strong, that we would surrender to your word and what it says, let you lead and guide us in every situation. And we pray and ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.